Hello, in this video we will be going over how to use pivot tables in Excel. We will be using an exercise as an example where we are given credit card transaction data in a raw format. Say this is just something that you got off a credit card report somewhere. Lots of data, really messy, doesn't give us much in terms of a report that we would give to somebody else, but it for sure is our data. Excel has a feature called tables, which is where we'll start, because this just is completely illegible. The columns aren't the right length. Let's go ahead and select format as table. This will also make it easier to create pivot tables and adjust data later. So we'll go ahead and select, I like this one. My table has headers because it does. Make sure that that's checked and hit OK. Now everything's the right length. Our transaction amounts are given in dollars, our transaction dates are proper, good stuff. All right, so we are given the task to compare the totals in each month across years. Basically, we want to see if we're doing better this year per month than we did last year. See if there's some growth there. Excel's pivot tables can make this really simple for us. So, in order to create one, we're already in the Table Design tab. If you aren't, go ahead and pop over there and click Summarize with Pivot Table. This will pop up a wizard that will ask you a couple questions. We'll choose the data that we want to analyze. It's already selected since we had a table, and Excel recognizes the table. If you didn't use a table, it might still recognize if you were clicked inside of your data, but make sure that it gets all of it. We're not going to use an external data source this time. We're just going to put it to a new worksheet. If you wanted to put it to an existing worksheet, you can click that and then select anywhere that you wanted it to be added. But we're just going to stick with a new worksheet, and we'll click OK. So sheet 2 is our new worksheet. I'm going to rename this review because it is our review of our data. And let's start poking at it, right? Because that's the best way to learn. We know that we want transaction amount as our value. That's going to sum up our transaction amount. So we should have $50,148.18 as our total across all of our data. If we select that column in our data, we see that we do indeed have $50,148.18. So that's working so far, right? Cool. Now we want to use the date in order to sort it by, or group it rather, by year and by month. So let's see how we can do that. Let's just try doing it off the bat. Transaction date. All right, so Excel recognizes that transaction date is a date. It groups it by year, quarter, and month. As you can see, when you click these little plus and minus, they drop down, giving you more information, or if you click it again, hiding that information. This is the breakdown by 2018. This is the breakdown by quarter 1, and this is the breakdown by January. So we have our month, it's in here. We want the month across here, or down here, and we want the years across here. So, well, if we want years across, and it's currently down, let's try dragging years over to columns. So that separates the data out somewhat, right? We have 2018 and 2019 across the top. And we have our quarters grouped and our months grouped down the side. That's not 100% what we want because we don't want those quarters. So if we right click over here and click group, we can see that years, quarters, and months are selected. If we just get rid of quarters by left clicking it and clicking OK, the data jumps around a bit. Not what we wanted, right? So let's drag years back over here. And we get our months down the side and our years across the top. That's how easy it is to create a pivot table report. We have our months down the side like we wanted, and we have our years across the top. That took us a whole 4 minutes, it looks like. But we're not quite done. Let's make this pretty because we have the time, right? So let's select, we want, first of all, we want our transaction amounts to be in accounting format. We could go up here and just select this, but let me show you how to do it the proper way. If we click this little down arrow next to sum of transaction amount, we can select value field settings. This gives us a couple of values that we can play with. For example, the custom name. Let's go ahead. We can see sum of transaction amount is over here. We'll just rename this to earnings because it was our earnings in that month and year. We want the sum. We could change this to use any of these formulae, count, average, max, min, product, yada, 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 but we won't be doing that. Just know that this is where you would go in order to change that. We can also show values as. This is really complex. We can see if it's percent of grand total, percent of something. You can play around with this a lot in order to find percentages. So if we wanted to say January 2018 was a percent of the grand total, we can go over there. 18 out of 50, whatever that is in percent. We're not going to do that though, just showing you that those exist. We'll go over to number format instead. Now you can see it's by default on general. We can, of course, turn it into anything that we want, but we're going to turn it into accounting. We have our 2 decimal places, and our symbol is the $sign. We're going to click OK and OK. Now, this is formatted properly. We have the full 2 decimal places. Normally, this one would have just been 0.9, but it's 0.90 now. And we have our $signs. So, what else could we clean up on this? Well, the grand total column isn't really necessary, right? We don't need that. We don't need to know what the grand total was across months. That doesn't tell us anything. We're just here to compare one month to another month across years. So let's go ahead and go over to Design, Grand Totals, and if I select off for rows and columns, you can see that both of them disappear. But oh no, maybe we wanted to compare 2018 to 2019 in this report. It would make sense, right? So let's go back over to Design, and turn back on grand totals for columns, because that's where we want. We want the columns grand total. If we were to use rows, we would turn on the rows grand total. Let's do on for columns only, and voila. We can see that we did a bit better in 2018 than we did in 2019. And we can see individually in here that we did better in January 2018, and better in February, so on and so forth. Wow, we did a lot better in 2018 than 2019. But what does this mean, column labels? That doesn't tell me anything. These are the years. These are the months. And yes, you can just select those and edit them. These down arrows would allow us to sort or to filter. We're not going to do that. In fact, if you were to filter, I would suggest that you use the filter out here. Let's see. What else can we clean up? It looks pretty clean right now, right? But let's say we don't want this here and this here at all. It's an option. We can go over to Pivot Table Analyze, and we can uncheck Show Field Headers. There they go. We can see the earnings. We know that this is a year, and we know that this is a month just by looking at it, right? So we don't need it to tell us that. And for one more thing, you can go to the Design tab in order to change, well, the design. You can change how it looks to any of these, or you can create a new pivot style. In our case, let's see, what do I like? For earnings. Yeah, that one looks good. So now we have our earnings distributed by year, distributed by month. And I like that little double line for accounting. Don't know why, just my preference. Obviously, you have your own preference. Use whatever you like. Let's see what would happen if we checked a couple of these. Do we want banded rows? Useful. Has a little line between each row. Banded columns? Nah, because we kind of want to compare across months, so let's just leave that there. We got rid of the column headers, or the row headers. Well, we're already hiding those, so they're probably not doing much. But let's say that looking at this report was an eyesore for somebody. Let's say that they just couldn't figure it out because they had to look across each month and they had to see it for themselves. Well, we can go one step further. We can go to Pivot Table Analyze, and we can use a pivot chart. Now, as the name might announce, it's a chart based on pivot data. So we click Pivot Chart, And just like inserting a new chart anywhere else, we can go ahead and select which chart type we'd like. I like the column for this one, so we can add one real quick. Boom. That's as easy as it is. Or if we wanted to change this to, or if we wanted to add another pivot chart that was aligned, say, we can do that as well. I would only recommend those two for this data. I'm sure there's other ones that people might prefer. Bars are there. There's areas, which are just line charts with fill underneath them. X and Y doesn't work for this one, obviously. Pi is kind of funky for this one. But column or line makes the most sense. You can see right away, 2019 is the orange, 2018 is the blue, and that's what we have there. Now we have this ugly transaction date down here. Field settings. Instead of transaction date, we'll say, do we even need this one, really? Let's just call it year, month. Because those are our months going across the bottom. You can see that month changed here and month changed up here. And we have our years down here. So there you go. There you have it. We took a whole 10 minutes maybe and created a beautiful pivot table over here and created a couple of pivot charts in about a minute off of that. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you have anything else you would like me to go over, please let me know. I'll go ahead and see if I can't link this Excel sheet in the either the comments or the description for this video. If not, you can use this video to replicate it. So thanks so much for watching, and take care.